So Narc is convinced that Ashes of Creation is going to be a groundbreaking MMO. Let's see what he has to say.
Hey, what up, boys? So, lately, I've been getting a lot of critique about the state of my camera lens, and I'm not quite sure why, because it looks perfectly fine to me in the
just footage. A little blurry.
Here, maybe if I wiped it off. Maybe that's it.
No, it's worse.
Much better, much better. Today, I want to try something ever so slightly different. Therefore, my usual live stream analysis is going to be in a completely different format. And one format that I hope you'll enjoy, because it's a lot easier to do. But before we get into that, our patrons and I would love for you to grab yourself a Coca-Cola, because this month, I'm going to react to the live stream and comment over it almost in real time. I still need to do a little bit of editing because I'm 100% confident I'm going to mess it all up. It's not like I've got 3 years of experience on YouTube, right? Of course, your feedback is much appreciated, and hopefully we can make this a regular thing. Now, with all that bollocks out of the way, let's begin. Now, So right off the bat, as Stephen introduces the team and sets expectations, I just want to address a major critique we've seen this month.
I think that staff looks cool, right?
Social media channels talking about the world looking bare. And yes, I tend to agree that this world was looking bare, but if you apply the smallest amount of logic within the context of the world, it makes perfect sense. This month, the team chose to display this particular location within the winter season. Likely, they were...
I actually think even the winter season, like, this gives me freaking Game of Thrones vibes. Like, just looking at this, I'm thinking I'm in some Game of Thrones scene or something here. Like, seriously. I think they did well with those, I wouldn't say dead bushes, but like hibernating bushes, right? Because they no longer have any leaves or anything. Oh, yeah, like, still a few leaves remaining. I kind of love those kind of stones in the background. This actually reminds me of some places in the UK where there are like some Celtic culture ruins, right? Like, you have those kind of stone circles and stuff. You can find them actually in the UK, and this looks interesting. I actually love the environment, and graphics wise, like I already said this before, Ashes of Creation from an MMO perspective is going to be graphics wise like mind-blowing. Like, when was actually the time like MMOs really had like some big breakthrough with graphics? I think this happened sometime around, was like Guild Wars 2 or something like that, right? And with ESO, where like suddenly the environment start looking better and better, because if you look at like Lord of the Rings online, Star Wars The Old Republic online, and like other games, like graphics wise they're not so up to date right now, right? But there were already back in the day some games, and BDO especially, that graphics wise were like, oh, people were like worried if their computer would burn or something because of the performance, right? Because you have like high graphics in an online world, right? So yeah, but I think they did really well here. I love the environment. It looks beautiful.
Within the
I would love to explore
season,
here.
Likely a reflection of Tumok's homeland, Sojoma, to the north, and in my opinion, that's a great way to not only set the tone, but to remind everyone that Ashes of Creation is the first MMORPG in history that actually hosts a weekly seasonal rotation that affects the gameplay, the economy, and the
mobs.
content. This basically boils down to every single location in Ashes.
Unique mobs based on season and different skins for existing mobs.
Different materials, different mobs, and of course, the aesthetics that we can clearly see in this winter season. For me, this is pretty spot on, and you guys can enjoy this clip of a real-life cat in this snowy area, and as you can see, it looks
just
pretty
like
much exactly the same as Ashes of Creations.
That's why I say it looks like a Game of Thrones scene.
The game looks bare and empty makes zero sense now within context, because how else do you expect a winter season to look like? Now, with that said, are there any improvements that we can make to what we see? Well, possibly, but until we get our hands on the game itself, it's going to be really difficult to give constructive feedback to environment design and comparing it to other seasons. I personally think the dead foliage, the leafless trees, and the barely visible path is exactly what anyone with half a brain would expect.
Oh, there are actually footsteps, but they have to work on that. Like, look at that. Here we see one footstep, Then 2-3 meters later, we see another footstep. So this is not complete. Like, look, there's one here. I think you can see this very well here. And then there's like one here, right? Look, there's like 3 meters almost, right? Like nobody makes such big steps unless you're like jumping or something, right? So yeah, and why is there just one footstep? Where's the second one? Like, is he like spreading his legs like that? Like, what's happening here? Like, they need to work on that, right? It's definitely just temporarily. I don't think any game can have permanent footsteps based on season. That would be super realistic, but this is, I think, from a technological perspective, not possible. But if you're talking about improvement, it would be cool if actually you walk there and some days later, unless it snows again, you still see those footsteps on the ground. But no game is capable of doing that right now. But yeah, there's definitely some room available here still for improvement for those temporary footsteps in the snow, right? But otherwise, I would say freaking hibernating bushes without leaves. We got some nice stones here. We got like a bit of more muddier area here. I think they're totally fine. I love how those snowy hills here. Nice.
Expect from a winter season.
10 out of 10.
The beauty of this world will come out when we see the transitional periods over the course of a few days, going from this winter to the spring season, blooming before our very eyes as we log in daily.
Yeah, and then flowers
and that's
appear,
basically
and butterflies.
Impossible to display during a showcase. You can see a perfect example of this during the weather showcase back last year, if you need a reminder. If there's one thing I've learned over the last 2 years watching this game be developed in tandem with a platform for people to speak their opinions, it's that not everyone has seen every showcase, but most importantly, people deliberately ignore previous showcases in bad faith. Now, the team talk about the lore during this segment, but we'll save the lore part of this video related to Tumok, his origin, his cyclops kin up in Sejoma, and basically the whole reasoning behind him being this far south for an upcoming Chronicles of Copium video. We're instead going to talk about one of the more interesting features shown during this showcase. And the idea of certain mobs in the world standing off against you instead of just straight up.
You know what I love here about this spider? I've seen a video by someone and they had their tarantula provoked, right? Like there was someone keeping a tarantula, and there was like a vlog by some creator. I watched this one because I was like curious about keeping tarantulas. I never kept one. And there was like one tarantula, and this one got like a little upset when the door of its like terrain was open, and that one went also in like that kind of form, like a defensive stance. So I kind of love this animation here with this giant spider. It's very real life accurate.
Standing off against you,
like look at
instead
this.
of just straight up.
That's how tarantulas go.
Although the animation looks cool, etc., 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 I want to discuss the gameplay implications of this and the immersion, because a lot of you guys in the comments said about Lord of the Rings Online having this feature too, which I found very interesting. However, looking into it, it's not quite the same, is it? Having a mob turn and face you and play an emoji in the chat, it's not the same as designing an immersive defensive animation. So
very important, guys. I actually hope Lord of the Rings Online comes out after Ashes of Creation, and I tell you guys why. I know some people wanted like early release, like 2025 maybe already, but I think it's better if around 2025 or 26 Ashes of Creation comes out, and then maybe 2000. Yeah, if they can make it to 2025 with Ashes of Creation, I would be very happy. And then 2027 Lord of the Rings Online. Why do I want Lords of the Rings Online to come out 2 years after Ashes of Creation? I tell you guys why. Because what they could do is in the first months and maybe even like the first half year of the release of Ashes of Creation, like the team of Lord of the Rings Online, they can actually look at what Ashes of Creation did well, test the first months of launch of this game and see what they like. And they can add the good things also to Lord of the Rings Online, because that would be so nice to see like Lord of the Rings Online also succeed, because I'm already convinced that Ashes of Creation is going to be definitely in the top 5 when it comes to MMOs. Will it be the best MMO in the year it comes out? Not sure, but it would definitely be in the top 5. I'm actually convinced about that for sure. And I actually feel like Ashes of Creation, with all those features that are being added and seasons, I feel like this will change the future of MMOs as a whole. Like, there are going to be some innovations in this game that other companies, like hopefully Lord of the Rings Online, will look at and be like, wow, they actually did well with these features, and this with seasons and seasonal quests. It's kind of like patches, right, where we add like new content. But we're actually not adding new content, we're just circling it around based on the season that changes, let's say, each 2-3 months, right? So from January till, let's say, March, you have those kind of quests and mobs. Then from March till, I don't know, May, June or sometime, you have other mobs and quests. And it feels like it's just a new patch that's being released with new content, but it's not. It's just circling around based on the season. And I kind of love that idea, actually. And it gives you earlier new content, then you don't have to wait for like a half year or a year like you do with the classic MMOs for the company to release a new patch with, let's say, a new dungeon or something. There could be also seasonal dungeons, right? Where there's some sort of ice dungeon that's only accessible in winter. And if it's summer, maybe you have some rune somewhere that is maybe frozen through in winter, so you can't pass through there or something. Maybe it's covered in snow. And then you have like two unique dungeons based on the snowy and the not snowy season or something. That would be so cool.
If this is tech Intrepid are taking to the next level, here's what I'd love to see them do with it in the future. Expand this idea to our open world raids and dungeons, where we're progressing through armies of hostiles standing in our way of progress. When we play MMORPGs in large or small group content, before the pool, some mobs just sort of stand around and wait for us to set up our crowd control, and it does make the game feel, like
slow
a game. You can use this tech to make it far more immersive by having mobs stop what they're doing, stop them in their ambient animation, ready their weapons and turn to face the characters as they approach. You have this tech set up here, and I suspect this is likely setting up for exactly that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I cannot wait to see what I'm suggesting maybe get actually implemented into the game.
Alleine, verängstigt und voller Wunden. Lebensbedrohliche Parasiten.
So moving on, we're actually approached by Tumok himself now, and the first thing I noticed is the sound design.
Something of interest, in there, no matter where you
go. The giant.
Now, I know the team are talking over it, but
wow.
As you can see, what they're going with sounds fantastic right now. It's just a little bit off, but I'm positive you're well aware.
You get one shot.
From a visual point of view, I think his size is very grounded to the world, and the animation is so well done in conjunction with the realistic way the trees fall down.
He's not attacking him, but he's so close. If I was in Skyrim right now, I would be flying through the sky like a shooting star or something. Like, seriously. Like, this is actually what made me terrified of giants. Like, when I was a kid, I would like read those kind of fairy tale books and stuff about like giants and this and that, or I would see them in freaking cartoons. I was not terrified by giants. You know what made me terrified of giants? It was freaking Skyrim, when I once just made I was new to Skyrim. I was like walking around, and there was apparently some giant camp. I had no clue what that was. So I saw like this sort of thingy on my map that just showed up. You have discovered some camp or something. So I walked there, there's a giant. This one actually stops, stares at me. So I walk closer, he suddenly runs to me. He uses like, he smashes me with something. It looks also like some lock or something. And I freaking get blown to the sky, and I'm like flying around like a shooting star. And this shocked me so much, I had to reload my last save. And I was like, from that moment on, terrified by giants. So yeah, I wouldn't get too close to that one.
Way the trees
seems friendly
down.
though.
It's just an overall aesthetically satisfying visual.
I don't want to get hit again with a club by a giant.
Trees, to be honest, but of course, Intrepid rarely disappoint. Now, at this point, we're probably going to skip forward to the actual fight, because I could talk over the encounter and give my thoughts about it in real time.
GM Duck.
Starting with the fact that this encounter is at low levels, and I'm kind of two ways about it, because
they have a large
it's fantastic to see that the team are putting this much detail and effort into one of the very first encounters, but it's important to note that more mechanics doesn't necessarily mean better. For first encounters, the goal should be to create compelling, straightforward fights that really focuses on the core premises of an MMORPG, that being the Trinity system, and the team talk about how that's exactly what they're doing. But you see, the problem with this is, from a new player's perspective, having 3 phases with 4 mechanics per phase and ads spawning and the boss moving constantly, it looks chaotic, right? And this is with half the intended players, at least. Imagine how much more chaotic it'll look with twice as many people running around.
I see so much magic flying around.
A progression curve is very important when it comes to MMORPGs, and there's a reason why early bosses only have 1 or 2 mechanics. It's designed to teach players slowly over the leveling experience what mechanics do and how to deal with them. So when they encounter those mechanics at later levels, they're familiar with them and they have a clear understanding with how to deal with them.
Why did he not dodge it?
Right? It's about looking at the long term. If the first encounters that we're getting are slamming 9 separate mechanics into new players, how many of those 9 mechanics are going to be actually understood and applied later on? Or will the players just move forward expecting an open world cluster similar to MMORPGs?
I think that was what some people actually complained about retail WoW, right? With like new raids and dungeons. There's some people believe that there are too many mechanics and it should be more like classic WoW, like the vanilla days where there are just few mechanics with bosses. And that now we apparently in WoW have too many mechanics, and this makes it very, very hard for like newer players, right? And when you look at like the way Blizzard is designing WoW right now, I sometimes feel like they're more focused on keeping their old players than attracting new players. So they add like stuff to make it like super difficult for like new players, but give something challenging to the remaining players. And I'm not sure if that's the right model you want to go with MMO, because I would always focus on attracting new players to my game. And on the side, you can always still offer maybe something a bit grindy or something, so all players have something to go for again. Or endgame is anyway also PvP a lot, right? So make PvP more cool, add new battlegrounds and stuff. Like, I think there are other ways than to increase the difficulty of a game to keep old players engaged in an MMO. That's just my opinion.
Like Guild Wars 2 or ESO, where technically structure exists, but you can bypass everything with the open world mentality of brute forcing it. Here's what I got from the narration of the
I see what he
basically
means,
from
yeah.
most of the narration in all previous
They
live
just
streams.
heal through and stuff,
I
and
think
DPS things out
Intrepid
as well.
are
In ESO.
genuinely starting from scratch with everything they're designing. The developers, they're taking their previous experiences and relearning it all within this true open world, massively multiplayer experience. And in order to actually learn, they need to experiment and try a wide, diverse amount of things before they can refine it for later encounters in development. It does truly feel like we're along with the devs on their journey to create a groundbreaking MMORPG. And along that journey comes a learning curve. So,
yeah,
my feedback for this encounter is threefold. First of all, it's great that you're trying to create complex, phase-heavy fights right out of the gate to really focus on that idea that the end game isn't the be-all and end-all of MMORPGs. The leveling experience is a very important part, and making the leveling experience fun throughout the story arc, gameplay, and encounter design is...
But in this showcase, I see an error, something that actually never happens in the MMOs I play, but maybe they're just doing it for the showcase. So you have half of the group focus on the totem and half on the boss. And there's like something in Skyrim in ESO, like the Skyrim zone, where you do those horror storms or something, and they are not totems, but those kind of tree thingies, right, that you have to destroy, otherwise like very strong mob spawn. And I never see usually players focus so much on the mobs. Usually everyone that's in that zone, they see, oh, this kind of tree thingy spawns, just like this totem here. Everyone will focus their DPS on it and nuke this as fast as possible, because this mechanic here, like if you ever have a boss fight and you see the boss put something on the ground that also has HP that you can destroy, like you usually want to go for that first, because that is usually tied to some broken mechanic. Like either it buffs the boss's damage, or maybe after some time it will explode and do something crazy. We have this also with Ifrit in freaking Final Fantasy XIV, right? Where there's like this kind of needle, and if you don't destroy it as a group immediately, like your whole group vibes this primal fight. So yeah, I don't see why players would still focus on this dude, this giant here, if they could just go for the totem. Because that's what I would do with my group. I would even freaking shout in chat, hey, all attack the totem, ignore the boss for now or something. Like, that would be me. I would be shouting in chat.
The leveling experience is a very important part, and making the leveling experience fun throughout the story arc, gameplay, and encounter design is going to be a massive make or break for the game, I think. However, you also need to take into consideration the learning curve of the players. Having a large pool of weak abilities that are zergable is far inferior than having two mechanics that are brutally challenging the core parts of the Trinity. Nail that into players as they're progressing. Otherwise, they're just going to arrive at level 40 and 50 with zero actual real-life experience to deal with gear-dependent mechanics. And that's a trap all currently popular MMOs suffer from today.
Yeah, with the gear,
Next, this isn't really feedback, more of an observation. The spell effects in conjunction with the size of the boss did indeed look great. Within the daylight and the snow, it was a good way to show that the spells aren't too overwhelming. However, I wonder how this encounter would look during nighttime or during any other season where the
then
white
you don't
snow
see much.
Isn't dampening the harsh spell effects that we've seen in previous showcases. I agree that the effects themselves, they're well done. The distortion effect from some of the abilities that the boss does, it adds a lot of impact, and you're definitely going in the right direction.
But we see it only good because the ground is white.
In my opinion, at least, I still think the player spells need a lot of culling, and I stand by it even needs a straight-up reconsideration. But whilst we're on this note of spell effects,
I see this too, like, I've noticed one issue when it comes to some spells. Like, you have those kind of spells, like when you shoot thunder or something, that are, like, very visible, right? And then you have, like, other spells that you barely see. It looks like nothing was even cast, but damage appears on the boss. I think there was, like, one spell where, like, some tiny ice needles are being shot or something, or was it wind? I can't even tell because it's so small. Like, only those kind of arcane globes that are being shot and the lightning stuff, I can only see that. Like, the other spells are almost, like, invisible. You don't see them. And then you have, like, this kind of spell. I don't know what is where you glow like yellow. I feel like that has a way too strong effect and it's very distracting. So what I see here is when it comes to animations, they have either spells that have too much animation, so it's like distracting from combat, and you have those that are almost invisible. Like you as a player, you only see the impact of your spell in numbers on the boss, but you don't see it inside the animation. So some, I feel like they need to be made a little bigger and some need to be made a little smaller, and they need to meet in the middle so it's not too distracting and it's not too less impactful. Like, you need to feel some impact when you are, especially if you're like a mage and you're shooting like fireballs. Like the fireball should be bigger than your fist, in my opinion. It shouldn't just be like tiny like your fist, or hey, like a small ball of fire hitting the target. No, it should be like head size or even bigger.
Need a lot of culling, and I stand by it even needs a straight up reconsideration. But whilst we're on this note of spell effects,
like, look, what is this? Is this wind, ice? I barely see it.
Because I think these are actually variations of
the
one of the basic starter summoning spells. If we rewind back to the Coffin showcase, there's a red version of these wolves, and I'm convinced that's a pretty clear demonstration of their spell augment variations in action. But at this point, I am merely weaving copium for the sake of it. I have one final note to conclude today's video, and this is fairly minor, but a comment I saw all the way back during your Dragon World boss showcase, they mentioned the idea of having these bosses, after they're defeated and they fall on the ground lifeless, their corpses slowly decay into ash.
Wait,
and
what?
I'd really like to see that implemented for not just Tumok, but all the
bosses. Yes, just one eye.
So, like, if they're defeated for the 20 minutes, they persist, and then their body slowly begins to turn to stone, and then the bodies begin to crumble into a pile of smoldering ash that eventually blows away with the wind. I think that will be a great touch aesthetically, and it also fits in very well with the lore.
I I would say they should just make it where if a body lays for a bit, it has like some bone model or something. So let's say you kill a monster, and I'm not sure like how long it takes for it to despawn, but let's say a body remains on the ground for 5 minutes, just for example. Then they should make it after 3 minutes, they're just bones. And then the bones remain for another 2 minutes, and then it just disappears. I think that would also fix it. It does need to be where you see the state of decay, because then you have to have so many models for everything, right? Like for this giant, you have to have a slightly decayed model, a medium decayed one, a heavily decayed one, then you need a skeleton with some skin pieces left, and then a pure skeleton one, and then a dust one or something. Like, I don't think that is it even possible technologically? It would be a lot of effort. It would make the game even come out much later, I believe. I'm actually fine if they have 2 models, like a normal dead one and 2-3 minutes later a skeleton one or something. I think that's already good.
But as usual, I am just one nerd, desperate for a good MMO. And because this video is very different to my usual videos, any kind of feedback would be much appreciated. I'm trying to experiment with more reactionary, natural formats for reasons that I will remain disclosed. And I have an absolute truckload of videos planned this month, so I'm trying to save any kind of time.
I love reacting to stuff.
With that said, I want to thank my patrons. Without your support, this balding, middle-aged man wouldn't be able to live his dream of talking shit. The internet, if you made it to the end of the video, surely it's worth giving a like, and I'll see you in the next one, because you're high on copium.
I love when he says that. Let me give this one a thumbs up. Like, yeah, when it comes to like effects, like I said, they need to find more of a balance, make some bigger, some smaller. The seasons, I think they are really doing well, and it's going to shape the future of MMOs, because if they pull it off successfully and people actually enjoy it, a lot of other companies are going to have a look at it, like the Lord of the Rings Online development, right, from Amazon Games, right? So Amazon Games will look at it and say, oh, actually players appreciate seasons, they like it, it makes the film more immersive, it makes the game feel more immersive, it's more realistic. You know what, let's add this. I think that's good, because anything that Ashes of Creation accomplishes that is good is going to save the genre of MMO as a whole and make it more popular. And this is something I've been missing recently, is that there's a big MMO that comes out that's on a level like World of Warcraft was back in the day. And I wonder if Ashes of Creation can get to that level, or at least near it, that World of Warcraft had back in the day. But I'm also convinced that the only way for an MMO to really have a big breakthrough and be super popular is if there's some innovation with some stuff that other MMOs don't have. You need to find something that's not out there, because that's how World of Warcraft got big. It had like a lot of stuff that no other games had, right? It was built on a big franchise, the whole Warcraft strategy games franchise. I loved World of Warcraft 3, I've been playing it for eternity, so when World of Warcraft came out, of course, I was immediately on that game and I was like so addicted to it. But that was also because I loved the whole franchise of Warcraft, and because it was like my first MMO that I ever played and it was something new, so yeah. Let's see where they will be in the future. I definitely think they're going to shape the future of the MMO genre. Like, I think Intrepid Studios, they're doing good so far. And I give Ashes of Creation another year or two for it to come out. I actually believe it's going to be 2025. But yeah, what do you guys think about The Last Life? Do you like combat? How do you feel about the spell effects? I feel like they need to make some a bit bigger in my opinion, and maybe make some like 10-20% smaller. And yeah, they need to fix the footsteps in the snow. The gap is just too long. Like, what is this? Like a footstep in the snow, 3 meters later, another one. But yeah, guys, if you are new to this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content. I'm very excited in the future to make like let's play episodes and stuff to Ashes of Creation, so I'm really looking forward to the game coming out. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give this one a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time.